If you guys have a patch of land and you want to grow a beautiful garden, the first thing you would do, logically speaking, is you would remove the weeds from the ground. You would clean the area, right? And then once the soil is clean, only then would you plant the seeds and you feed the seeds water and you look after the seeds until they blossom into this beautiful, colorful garden filled with fruits and vegetables and all sorts of blessings, basically. Correct? The heart is the exact same. The heart is like a patch of land from which we need to remove these diseases before we plant the seeds and water them until it bears incredible fruits. And so far, you might have noticed that in this book, we've covered all the diseases of the heart, such that you're able to identify the weeds and take them out. Now is the time where we're going to start planting the seeds and watering our hearts to bear incredible fruits, and that is through something known as maqamat. Maqamat is a plural word, and its singular is maqam. And a maqam is basically a special station that you reach with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And with every station that you reach, you get closer and closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's almost like climbing a spiritual ladder. And once you reach the top of the ladder and you complete all the maqamat and you reach all the maqamat, you will have perfected your iman and perfected your taqwa to that point where you actually become one of the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, أَلَا إِنَّ أَوْلِيَاءَ اللَّهِ لَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Unquestionably, for the close friends of Allah, the awliya, the very, very close people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there will be no fear concerning them, nor will they ever grieve. Subhanallah. At that level, your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so intimate, so strong, so beautiful, that it comes to a point where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens doors for you that are not open to the super vast majority of people. For example, in the story of Maryam in Surah Al-Imran, when she interacts with Zakaria, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, كُلَّمَا دَخَلَ عَلَيْهَا زَكَرِيَّا الْمِحْرَابَ وَجَدَ عِنْدَهَا رِزْقًا قَالَ يَا مَرْيَمُ أَنَّى لَكِ هَذَا قَالَتْ هُوَ مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَرْزُقُ مَن يَشَاءُ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. Whenever Zakaria would visit Maryam in the mosque, he would notice something very strange. He would notice that Maryam would have fruits of the summer whilst it was winter. And when he would enter her in winter, he would realize that she had the fruits of the summer. And he would say, "Where did you get this from, ya Maryam?" And she would say, قَالَتْ هُوَ مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. It is from Allah. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَرْزُقُ مَن يَشَاءُ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. That Allah provides for whoever He wills without limit. This is one of the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done for Maryam because she is so close to Him. Otherwise, it can't be explained. You can't get fruits of the summer in the winter, and you can't get the fruits of the winter in the summer. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave that to Maryam because of her level with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the sort of level we're talking about. Another example is the story that we all know, which is the people of the cave. Just because they had unwavering iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah protected them from the tyrants by making them sleep for 309 years. You can't explain that. But Allah made them sleep for 309 years to protect them from a tyrant nation that was out to get them just because they had a special level with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even to the point that when they were asleep, Allah did certain things to protect them during their sleep from ever waking up. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَتَرَى الشَّمْسَ إِذَا طَلَعَتْ تَزَاوَرُ عَنْ كَهْفِهِمْ ذَاتَ الْيَمِينِ وَإِذَا غَرَبَتْ تَقْرِضُهُمْ ذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ وَهُمْ فِي فَجْوَةٍ مِّنْهُ ذَلِكَ مِنْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ مَنْ يَهْدِ اللَّهُ فَهُوَ الْمُهْتَدِ وَمَنْ يُضْلِلْ فَلَنْ تَجِدَ لَهُ وَلِيًّا مُرْشِدًا. That when you see the sun rising above the people who are sleeping in the cave, as it rose, Allah literally changed the laws of physics and bent the rays of sun away from them so that the sun doesn't fall on their faces, thus waking them up. To that level that Allah changed the laws of physics just to protect them in their sleep because they had a special status with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I also mentioned to you a very, very powerful example from yesterday, which is another something to ponder on, which is the Mauritanian man who wasn't very well known amongst the people. He was a very simple man and didn't have much to his name. He would come into the mosque and he would pray 2 units of prayer with utmost khushu'. And he would pray such a perfect 2 units of prayer that the people would watch him, and then as soon as he would say Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, he'd go to the corner of the masjid, pick up the mat, and he would find money there. This is a level which is so special that only the awliya of Allah can achieve these kind of fruits. And it has a special name in Islam. These are known as karamat al-awliya. Karamat al-awliya. This is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens doors for you from being so close to Him that can only be explained by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these can be many. For example, some people reach such a beautiful, high, strong level with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that whenever they lift their hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He answers them. He just gives them whatever they want. Some people, they have an incredibly deep understanding of the verses of the Quran, for example, that you've never heard anything like it. Allah gives people a special understanding that can't be explained. This is because you have such a high level with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He unlocks matters for you. Some people are gifted with loving and enjoying the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they never ever get bored of it. In fact, they find a sweetness, they find the Jannah in it. This is what happens when you reach a certain level with Allah. Imagine the best part of your day being getting up for Fajr, doing dhikr, remembering Allah, praying tahajjud, that you actually feel like you're in Jannah when you're doing that. This is the sort of level we're talking about. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to reach such a beautiful level. But as you can imagine, to get to that level is no easy task. It is something that is incredibly difficult. And it takes years and years of hard work and dedication. And the rest of this book from now and all the other lessons, we're going to mention all the different maqamat so that we can climb the ladder together and know exactly what it takes to implement it. And the scholars have actually given you a process so you know what it looks like. In order to achieve a maqam, it starts with deep knowledge of the maqam. And this is very, very kind of rational. Because if you want to achieve something, you need to know about that thing in the first place. Otherwise, how do you know you're going to get to the right place? So this is what these classes are for, to give you the knowledge of the ins and outs of each maqam, and then you can practice them afterwards. So that's step one, which is basically gaining knowledge about that maqam. Step two is that once you have that knowledge, you begin to take action. But when you take action, you'll be stuck on step two for a while. This step two, the scholars have called a hal. A hal. And that is basically when an action is not yet fixed in your heart. It's not yet fixed in your life. It's something that fluctuates and goes up and down. Meaning if you do the actions of a maqam, you're not at that maqam yet, because sometimes you might forget to do these actions. Sometimes you might slack with them because you've only just started, right? So only once you maintain those actions for a very long time and it becomes part of your psyche, so it's the first thing you think about in that specific situation, that's when you achieve that maqam. So to give you a summary, it starts with knowledge of the maqam. Then you act upon that knowledge until you reach the hal. And then after you stay in that hal and you keep pushing and striving and doing the actions necessary, that's when it becomes part of you, and that's when you have achieved that maqam. And now we are ready to study the maqamat, and I really hope that you are all very inspired and your heart is yearning to get going with these maqamat. This book, I believe, mentions 11, and I believe they're the only 11s that are out there. If you can finish all 11 and reach all 11, then just make dua for me. That's all I ask, because you'll be at a very, very high level, inshallah ta'ala.